right over there. If Jesus does not have a sense of humor, I am doomed. As priests go, I'm a goofball. I know that. There have always been Episcopalians of a traditional type around me who have looked at me with the raised eyebrow and the curled lip. A bit flippant, isn't he? They seem to think. But luckily for me, there are a lot more Episcopalians who think that being goofy is not all bad. But I know it's an acquired taste. Of course, Jesus is the big guy. I know very well how the creed puts it. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead. So, if he doesn't have a sense of humor, I am doomed. So are you, really. Let me tell you why I think it's going to be okay. The great 50 days of Easter just ended. From Easter Sunday to Pentecost, we have been hearing stories of the newly risen Christ. Today, on Trinity Sunday, we hear the story of the time he was on the mountain with his friends, promising to be with them to the end. Now, there is a custom in the Eastern Orthodox Christian tradition of telling jokes during the Easter season. They tell funny stories, especially on Easter Monday, to celebrate the great trick Jesus played when he rose from the dead. Jesus is a trickster. He turns things upside down. Think about it. In his teaching, he turns things upside down. The last will be first. All who exalt themselves will be humbled. The greatest among you will be the servant of all, and so forth. And as he walks around Galilee, he turns things upside down, hanging out with losers and outcasts instead of righteous people, feasting instead of fasting, consorting with sinners instead of condemning them, and so on. And he turns things upside down for good when he rises from the tomb. His appearances to his friends after his resurrection are almost comical. Those Easter stories are almost slapstick. His friends see it, but they don't believe it. It's like they step on a rake that pops up and bops them in the face. Jesus is a trickster. And here's the thing about tricksters. They laugh, but they accept the absurdity of the human condition. Think of one of those life-size inflatable clowns kids used to have. The child knocks it down and it pops up again. I'm told that weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. What? Bozo, yeah. Bobo, I stand corrected. Well, when I think about that image, I think, in a way, that's kind of like Jesus in the resurrection. Now, all this is not to ignore pain or suffering or death. Sorrow, suffering, and death are real. I know that. But, as the burial liturgy puts it in the Book of Common Prayer, even at the grave we make our song. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. If Jesus does not have a sense of humor, we are doomed, but I believe he does. I have a working theory about Easter time. Eastertide has a soundtrack. The soundtrack of Easter is laughter. The music of the resurrection is laughter. Jesus laughs because the story ends with life. Death is not the end. Easter blows the door off every tomb. And the sound we can sometimes catch is the sound of laughter. Jesus laughing at us and with us and for us. So, as an official goofball priest who is dedicated to the idea of the laughter of Christ, I would like to sing you a song today. It's an old song I wrote a long time ago, but it's based on my own true experience. And I wrote this song because I feel that part of my job is to poke fun at all the clergy who still have not learned that all of us really are silly. I was at this big church service several years ago. The priests were lining up. It was time to start the show. And then one self-important cleric stood up to make some announcements. He told us to line up in our canonical order of precedence. "What is that?" I asked the priest next to me with a frown. Turns out it's some kind of ranking based on when we moved to our town. Kind of tickled my funny bone the way this stuff can please us. Our titles and egos and rankings. How does this look to Jesus? Clerical ego, clerical pride, 20 miles long and 20 miles wide. Well, something ain't right here, let me be frank. What's that I smell? Clerical rank. Now, you just think about our titles. Clerical pride does not end. We got venerable, very, right, and even most reverend. How about father, or mother, or rector, or vicar, or such? You can tell who I am by my title, but you sure can't tell me much. You know, I'd rather be called a gargoyle if we're talking about sacred spaces. They're carved on the walls of cathedrals with rain spouts out their faces. They serve to protect the church. They ought to be part of the staff. It may look like they're spitting down on us, but they're always good for a laugh. Well, clerical ego, clerical pride, 20 miles long and 20 miles wide. Well, something ain't right here, let me be frank. What's that I smell? Clerical rank. And how about those clothes we wear when we're dressing up to go? You get a bunch of us together, we look like a fashion show. We've got embroidered robes aplenty with elegance all over the place. We wear linen and orphreys and lappets and tippets and maniple surplice and lace. You know, there are priests who act like they think they were present at God's creation. They sign photos of themselves. To myself with frank admiration. It's obvious they think their gifts are wonderful and oh so fine. They write books with titles like this: The 10 Greatest Priests in the World, and How I Trained the Other 9. Clerical ego, clerical pride, 20 miles long and 20 miles wide. Something ain't right here, let me be frank. What's that I smell? Clerical rank. You know, Mark Twain wrote something about ministers. This is true. Mark Twain wrote that ministers are like manure. When you put them all in one pile, they stink. You have to spread them out to do any good at all. So no thanks to clerical ranks. No thanks to clerical ranks. No thanks to clerical ranks. No thanks. Oh no. Thank you. Saying the creed after that is kind of like spiritual mouthwash, which we all need right now. So I invite you to turn in the prayer book to page 358, and we